And speaking of no excuses, we're going to bring on now Dr. Valda Crowder, who is, I think, a phenomenal person who has done so much in the United States as it relates to the issue of COVID. But more importantly, Dr. V, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Um,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, I mean, I want to start off um, asking you a question
Okay.
about this latest statistic that just was released about life expectancies for
Yes.
Americans due to COVID.
Right.
Life expectancy has been declined by 1 year for, they say, for white Americans, and what, 3 years for Black Americans because of COVID?
Yeah.
Explain this.
Yeah. So it's 1 year, 1.1 year overall for all Americans, and for black males, it's gone down 3 years. For black females, it's gone down about 2 years, and Hispanics as well about 3 years. So life expectancy has gone down overall as a result of COVID. We have not seen this sort of decrease in African American life expectancy since World War II. So black male life expectancy went down 2.9 years as a result of World War II. And with COVID now, it's gone down 3 years.
Oh, pardon my ignorance, because I'm really trying to understand how in a year since
Uh-huh.
March of last year, how can they determine? And I don't want to get too deep into this, but how can you determine, a reduced or increased expectancy in that
Yeah.
amount of time? Explain how that works.
So what they're doing is, they have death data now going all the way back to the 1940s, 50s, all the way back almost 80 years or so. So what they're looking at is the death certificates, and how old was the person at the time of death, and then recalculating our overall life expectancy. I think a lot of people don't realize how many people we lost from COVID that were less than 50 years old. 75% of the people that died from COVID that were less than 50 years old were Black and Hispanic. So we lost a lot of young people related to COVID.
And we don't. You're right. We don't think about that.
No, we don't.
So now we have a vaccine, right? That's
Yes.
supposed to address this problem. Uh,
We have a couple vaccines.
exactly.
That's
So so
right.
let's talk about those two. But also,
Okay.
I'm still very much concerned about the fact that, from what I've been hearing, African Americans are not opting to take the vaccine. So if that's not
Hmm.
correct, correct me. But let's talk about the vaccines that are available right now.
Yeah, so right now the vaccines that are available are the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine. Both of them are two shots. They basically have a similar efficacy and side effect profile. I tell people all the time, get the one that you can get the quickest. I'm glad to hear that you got your vaccine the other day. I'm getting my second one on Saturday. So I tell people, get the one that you can get the fastest.
Does it matter? I mean, are they different in any other way?
They're different in that the Pfizer vaccine, I believe, goes down to 16 years old, and the Moderna vaccine is 18 years and older. I believe that there's about a 2 year difference in who can actually get the vaccine. But outside of that, they basically use the same technology. They have the same side effect protocol. They're very similar.
And why are you promoting, or why would you urge people to get
Yeah.
the vaccine?
So I tell people, when you look at, we've given out 56 million vaccines in the United States already, right? The side effects have been very mild, sort of soreness in your arm, maybe a fever, maybe a headache, very mild side effects. When you look at other countries, so Israel has now vaccinated more than 50% of its adult population. So they're now seeing their COVID numbers go down. Now, 97% of their COVID deaths are people who did not get hospitalized, did not get vaccinated. So I think that what's going to happen is, because it's still spreading, whether or not you decide to get vaccinated or not, this this virus is still going around. So I tell people, you're more likely to get it when you're sort of the odd man out and you're not vaccinated and you're not protected like everybody else.
And has it been your observation that African Americans tend to be more leery? I mean, we knew that was going to happen in the beginning. We talked about that,
Right.
that it was going to be a challenge to get certain communities to, uh, uh, accept the idea that this vaccine was going to be safe,
Mm-hmm.
present company included.
Yes. Yes.
But it's people's minds are changing.
Yeah.
But is it enough? Do you think that there needs to be more work to encourage Black and brown people to get the vaccine?
Yeah, I do. And I also think that, I think that we actually need to start talking about a lot of things. Like people think this vaccine was developed in 11 months. It was not. The development on this vaccine started back in 2004 and 2005. So this vaccine has actually been under development now for 15 years. So it's not, I think this people attribute the speed of it, but what they don't realize is that SARS, the original SARS, and COVID are 80% the same. Their DNA is 80% the same. So had we had a pandemic and it had been another virus that wasn't as similar, we really would have had to start over, and we would have had to take longer. We were just lucky that we already had a vaccine for something that was similar to what we were experiencing. So I think there's a lot of conversation and education that people need to have about how this actually became. Even that messenger RNA approach that's used in cancer drugs that people take all the time now. It's not that new.
And what about these? I don't know if you call them mutations, but these new viruses that we're
Yeah.
being warned about. Um, is there enough information to know whether the vaccine, if you've been vaccinated, that you're protected from those new viruses?
Yeah, so the UK variant you seem to be protected with both Moderna and Pfizer. The research is still out on the South African variant. That has a little bit more variations to it. But I just want to say to people, like, the variants come because we've allowed this to spread like wildfire. It's so important, even once you get your vaccine, to mask up until we actually get herd immunity, because it's a replication of this virus that leads to all these variants.
Now you are your profession. I mean, you're a emergency physician,
Medicine, yes.
right? Okay, and so can you share maybe some of the observations that you've seen in your patients? Because one of the things we really need to look at in our community is some of these morbidities that we've talked about over the past year since this occurred. We knew that they were out there, but
Right.
what impact is that having in patients that you've seen?
Well, I think that, the main thing is that there's a lot of people who are overweight and healthy, and being overweight is not healthy, and it is associated with doing worse with COVID-19. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much being overweight makes a difference. And you could just be 40 or 50 pounds overweight, and you're going to have a different course in with COVID-19 than someone who's not, right? So I think a lot of people don't see themselves as having a risk factor when they really do have a risk factor. One thing I give Mayor Bowser credit for, she actually prioritized overweight patients in the District of Columbia for the COVID-19 vaccine, and I think that was a very, very good idea. The other thing is a lot of people don't realize that there's antibodies. If you get sick before you can get vaccinated, you need to get to an infusion center and get the antibodies. It decreases hospitalization by 70%, but you have to get them within the first week of the infection. So there's a lot of things that, that people can do to kind of protect themselves. I think sometimes they're caught by surprise. And given that this has infected now, several million people in the United States, I always tell people, have an action plan for yourself and your family.
Excellent. That's one of the reasons we think information is necessary, and that's why we keep bringing this up every week
Yeah.
on Win TV. And we're certainly glad that you joined us. I know you do various health webinars. Can you talk to us about something that may be coming up soon?
Yeah, so I do a webinar every Tuesday and Thursday from 8 o'clock to 9 p.m. And I also have a website, which is askdrv.us. It's a free webinar. I tell people get on. Some folks are asking what they should do with their family. Some people are asking what they should do with their church or their business. What should they do with their union? So there's a lot of decisions that we're all out here making. And so I tell people get on the webinar. It's about a 20-minute presentation. And after that, I just take questions and answers and answer people's questions so they can make the best decision making for themselves.
Is there one question that that people ask that you could share with us that seems to be the most common question people ask all the time on your
People
webinars?
ask me all the time how well their masks work. So, and I tell people the little fabric mask that you make at home, and you make a 3-ply mask that's only about 20 or 30% effective. And the surgical mask might maybe be 30 or 40. The KN95 mask are like 80 to 90% effective. So I would say one of the number one things we go over is upgrading your mask. And I tell people, if you wanted to have some sort of colors or fabric on the outside, put the KN95 mask on and then put the stylish mask over it.
I'm glad I asked that question because, we're all trying to find our mask, we're trying to get the mask on. We throw something on really quick, we walk out the house without it. I mean, I guess I'm talking about myself. But yeah, doubling up now we hear does work. And I'm glad that you were able to share that tidbit with us. Is there anything that people maybe don't ask that you think they need to know?
I think that people don't consider there's a lot of concern about the risk factors for the vaccine, and there's a lot of concern about the mask being uncomfortable. But I think you also have to consider how uncomfortable is it to get COVID. And I think because people don't see that, I see that every day where patients are put on ventilators and are struggling to breathe. And when you really see how difficult that is, the vaccine and mask wearing looks a lot easier.
Wonderful. Well, I'm gonna let you go. I thank you so much for your time. And I'd like to get back together again because one of the things we want to talk about now that schools are beginning to reopen is safety in classrooms. And so I'm sure you can give us some updates on that and talk to parents and teachers who are really concerned about that as well. So I've scheduled another date.
Okay.
So we can meet here, same time, same channel, coming up soon. And I look forward to having you to join us to really share some great information to keep our community safe. And the final word is wear your mask, wash your hands,
the
social distance.
KN95 mask, upgrade your mask, upgrade.
All right.
All right.
Dr. V, thank you so much.
Okay.
All righty.